Hello, this is a video for the RLD YouTube channel, and what I'm experimenting with are some screen capture ways of presenting um, deals for partners and clients. And I'm going to practice by actually just taking a trip around some of my old deals from back in the day, and I'll tell a story for each one as I go. I have Google Maps open and I've put some markers in, and I'm going to start. If you watch the aerial footage video that I put up earlier, um, that's got some of these properties there, but this is a bit more detail of the different ones. So if I just click here, this takes us to this is the Royal Docks here, the city airport there, and this is Galleons Reach, and this is a deal that I did back in the mid-90s for Fairview New Homes. Chris Walker was the MD then, and it was mentioned to me by an old friend of mine called Joseph Billingham at the LDDC, and I met up with Chris, found out what he was looking for, and Galleons Reach came to my attention via a financial advisor guy called Ed Stollery, and so I made the appropriate telephone calls, and we went to see the guy that owned it. He was up in Newmarket. He got into racehorses and whatnot, and agreed a deal. And Fairview built this Galleons Reach development, and there's still a lot going on around there now. See, with Google Maps, it's actually possible to get on site really and have a look. But that's the Galleons Reach development. And I'm not sure if I can get street level. There we go. Looks like that blue line there is gonna. Right, here we are. See what's going on here. There's one of the blocks there. This is from April 2018, according to the. Oh, this is a bit better now. You can see, I mean, this was finished some years ago now. A friend of mine, Ollie Warren, used to live in one of these blocks of flats here when it was finished. Yeah, that's the Beckton sewage works there. So let's just come back out again now. And they have the East End. What's it done that for? Right, let's just go back to the list and back to the list. And now next we're going to go here. So this is Leamouth, the Leamouth Peninsula, which is the Royal Docks is this side and the Isle of Dogs is the other side. And this is the Orchard Wharf development here. So this was a scheme of live work apartments which we built, and my offices before I finally moved out of Docklands were on the first floor here. See the building's still there. We got planning permission for a large data center, a residential tower and whatnot for the East14.com development. This site here, there's still a lot going on with that. I haven't looked at the planning permission recently. This was the Shell Tankers building that's been demolished, and you can see there's quite a lot of development taking place around there now, and Galliard have actually finished this Orchard Wharf development here, and that's quite a scheme. So that's that. This site here is the Blackwall Trading Estate, which was the first investment deal I did in Docklands. Did that for St Andrews Land when I was at Hillier Parker's Docklands office. I'm not going to mention all the deals that I've done. I'm just going to go back to my list and just go to the ones I highlighted for ages. Although I can remember many of those deals. Right, next. 22 Marsh Wall, which was a site that formed the basis of a large development here, the Landmark, which is by Charlegrove Estates and Young Group did, I think. But I put the site together. I bought 22 Marsh Wall first. There was a car park behind 30 Marsh Wall. I used to have my offices in here and ran this property for and managed it for Laser Richmount, the property trust people. There's Ballymore's new have got their offices in this building now opposite. So used to be PricewaterhouseCoopers in there. The Britannia International Hotel. This is the Wardian development. This is the Novotel. When I was back in January in London, there's a fantastic rooftop bar and restaurant there. Highly recommend it. But as I was saying, I put this site together. I've got some old photos of what was there before. I had a long association with the industrial development that was there. The bulk of it we bought off Slough Estates. They took over Percy Bilton, and it was one of the properties that they sold out of that portfolio, which our company Redwell Investments bought. We also bought a block 1 to 3 Cuba Street on this corner site here, agreed a deal with the engineering works next door, etc. I think this site is still owned by Ballymore, and I sold our 1 to 3 Cuba Street site to them. So anyway, that's the Landmark. That's the biggest scheme on sites which I put together. The biggest one in acreage was Orchard Wharf, where we've just been looking at. Let's just go back to the list here. Yeah, I mentioned this one in the fly-through video. This building here was called the Innovation Centre. We introduced that investment to Simon Carson, who JV'd it with Baltic Estates, Baltic Property Finance PLC, and we managed it, ran it, got it fully let, etc. And Joe Dent, who's at British Rail Properties these days, Joe ran that building and 30 Marsh Wall for us. I had my residential offices in this property for a while, in Skylines, and then we moved into this property here. Very interesting stories about that. Willem Jensen and I got our fingers burnt by a guy that got sent to prison who's a con man. Anyway, perhaps I'll tell some stories about that another time. But anyway, yeah, the Innovation Centre, we ran that for a good few years, got it 100% let, and it proved to be a very successful deal for Simon, sadly no longer with us, and Bolton Property Finance. Let's just go back to my list here. This is a big old pub here, Devonshire House. You can see. I bought that off Fairview New Homes. They'd had their marketing and site suite there for building the Masthouse Terrace development. But it's nice to see. Then outside of London, it's the furthest north for an investment deal. This is Bibby Line Distribution in Scunthorpe, which again is an investment deal I did for Baltic Property Finance PLC. Oh, Shaggy Mix classic car. Look at those nice VW campers there. Oh, nice. Right, so that's Bibby Line Distribution. It's a huge distribution centre deal that we did. Okay. This is an office investment in Henley on Thames that we bought and sold. Interesting story there. The guy that ran the computer company that were in there, they were quite well known at the time. They had jugglers in the office and all sorts of things wandering around. And the guy came to see me at my place in Bristol, which I'll show you a photo of in a minute. He came to see me, and he'd actually set up an alternative health kind of thing in Clifton Village that got a terrible reputation for swingers and whatnot going there. And he was telling me stories about this place, all sorts of goings on in the sauna and whatnot. He was a nice guy, and basically we agreed a surrender of the lease and then sold it on with vacant possession. But that was that one. Edwin Brain sold that one to us, and I think he then sold it on for us again when we disposed of it. Where are we? That one, and then no, not that one. Here we are. This is again. Yeah, this is Rush Mills in Northampton, and just here in the aerial footage of the portfolio for our old corporate video. These come up. It's we just bought 2 straight office investments. We had a couple of rent reviews or whatever, and then we sold them on afterwards. So that was one of those. And then development wise, this here is the Belmont Estate, which we bought in Bristol when I moved out of Docklands. So it's 15,000 square foot Georgian mansion, which was totally derelict, which we restored. These 2 cottages we made into a single large house, and that they were derelict too. We terraced this walled garden, did the groundworks here for building an equestrian centre, and we built a cross-country course for 3-day eventing and ran a successful 3-day event for a number of years there. It's next to the Tinsfield estate. The current website actually doesn't quite get the story right. That's down to the whoever's there now. But we had many happy years there. We used to go up the pub here across the fields, or through our own woods. We used to go in our Land Rover up to the pub. So drink driving doesn't apply if you're on your own land. We had another party there in the woods up here, and we got closed down by the police helicopters, the lot. And I'd agreed to let some people have a rave in the woods, and it was all set fair to go, but they shut it down under some sort of late 1980s or 1990s legislation that they brought in to stop the huge raves and stuff. Yeah, it was an interesting story. We had the party in the house instead anyway, so everybody came, although we were limited to, I think we were allowed 100 people at the party. Some policeman came round and he said to me, "Mr. Lewis, you know, we can't stop you, but you can restrict the numbers you can have. You can have 100 people, but we would rather you have 50. How many will you have?" And I had my solicitor. I said, "I have 100," and he stormed out. I remember doing donuts in my Bentley in the field down here where there was a roadblock. Okay, I mean, it was ridiculous, really. That you know, it was a private party. It was on the front page of the Bristol Post or whatever. But there we are. I digress. What else have we got here? Well, that's about it for just this tour. Just on the website. The website for now is the home page with the introductory video. This is a quote that I got from Nick Leslau, and I did a blog about that. I had a job interview with Nick back in the mid 1980s. It's going back a bit. So there we are. There's the Belmont Estate video and about us. This is Commercial Property Register. My friend Charlie Potter runs that, and I've been looking at doing a Central London one and a Docklands one. Now we're launching RLD. I'll have another word with Charlie and see what we can do about bringing one out for Docklands City Fringes, etc. And then I've been doing a blog. I did this one this morning, a horse, my kingdom for a horse. This is really just looking at the opportunities coming up post COVID-19, post Brexit, but also post the financial crash that's been camouflaged by COVID-19. The banks were being bailed out already last August in Wall Street, and obviously there's been a lot of stuff going on. And I was looking at some real estate price indexes, etc. And there's a big report from the EU which is linked to here, and these are some of the words, key words. Quite interested in textual analysis, and you can go on a blog and sort of look that yourself. But 3 keywords: location. You know, 3 rules of property. Any property: location, location, location. We all know that one, right? The next one then is obviously debt and banks. Now, location is mentioned in this huge EU report 74 times. Debt is mentioned 20 times, and banks are mentioned 25 times. Now, in conjunction with these other sort of words that feature here, this is the top 100 words in the whole, you know, what have we got? Indices, prices, sales, value, appraisals, blah de blah, blah de blah. Basically, the context of you know, property markets at this stage of not necessarily just this property cycle, but this cycle of where we're at with this highly corporatized capitalism that we've got. You cannot ignore, when considering property prices, the fact that the currency has just been diluted hugely. Now, how much money supply expands depends on how much debt is created based on the increased base money, i.e. the quantitative easing, central bank reserves, etc., the way that all works. Now, Um, Effectively, though, if you own a hard asset um, and it's priced in a fiat currency, which obviously they all are, if the fiat currency supply is expanded over a very short period of time, that represents a dilution of your asset if you liquidate it. Um, and that's an interesting conundrum to sort of bear in mind. The other thing that I look at in this blog I put up today is the amount of debt in the multifamily hedge fund type purchases, a lot of which have taken place in London over the last few years. Part of the reason I haven't got back into the business since I sort of went to Bristol and then came to Sweden is precisely because I saw this, particularly post 2008, this massive expansion of the money supply. And then when things started to sort of look like they're getting a bit back to normal, there are all these cash burning companies coming along, like Uber. I mean, but they exist in the property market as well. And I took a similar view to that, to what John Moulton took the view of when he pulled out of the Rover car deal. John Moulton used to run Alchemy Partners, and he was basically saying, well, I'm not going to continue with my bid because people are coming in and they're bidding with all borrowed money, and they haven't got any skin in the game. And the lack of skin in the game is a huge problem for getting some sort of fundamental basis for for what makes up the value of an asset. And that's something I've thought about a lot over the last few years. In fact, I tackled it already in this article that I wrote in 1995 called The Fundamentals for Funding. What do I say here? Dockland specialists should now turn to educating the financiers. Yeah, we've got an app as well. All this is readable on an app, and you can make the images bigger and smaller to read those articles if you want to. So you can just get the app, put it on your phone, and I'm going to wrap up on this video now, but I will make some more. There are a couple of things that I've been working on since January. Property in Charlotte Street, a property in Kingston upon Thames called Kingston Bridge House, which we didn't bid on, which is in solicitors' hands now, but I was quite interested in that. The last few days, I was having a look at Beales in Bournemouth, which I understand is under offer as well now. I got an email from Rob Tudor today from the agent selling it. Rob and I go back to Hillier Parker days, so I'm looking forward to catching up with Rob when I'm over in the UK in the not too distant. And I've a couple of deals in the pipeline in the Isle of Dogs, which are two large sites. Again, they're basically for large residential mixed use, both about 300,000 square feet a piece, and I've been working on one of them the last week, and the other one I was having a look at back in February, March, but with all the lockdown, I haven't been able to get hold of the receivers who are selling the other one. But I'm going to put together just hopefully what will come a pretty innovative approaches. I've got as well as this YouTube channel, I've actually got a Vimeo channel which can be password protected and stuff. But I'm just trying to innovate really on how to report to clients and open up investment in deals to a wider market. all the deals I did before were all done in special purpose vehicles with a selection of investors that were involved in some deals and not in others. My old mate Glenn Chalkley's, I'm due to speak to Glenn tomorrow. He's in Dubai these days, and he's got a lot of investors that are looking to place some money in the market at the moment, and he and I are going to talk about a couple of the deals that I'm working on. So it's interesting times. I'm going to stop babbling on, process this video, and see if it actually comes out okay. So signing off.